Good. My background is wide and varied. I was a YMCA executive. Yes, I played guitar around campfires. I drove school buses. I ran camps with 1,500 high school kids. So I was a nonprofit executive. And so my exposure to, let's call it, amazing bosses and a bunch of okay bosses and some not so great bosses, just like everybody else. I saw that throughout my 15-year YMCA career, and my best boss, a gentleman named Jerry Nutter, had a huge impact on me, especially around managing teams very, very intentionally. And basically what he taught me was, yes, we're in a, as many nonprofits, they have very meaningful and significant missions, but there's a lot of weird human behavior that gets in the way of those. And what he helped us realize was you can't just focus on performance, because people can behave badly right in the pursuit of their particular goals and might stumble, rush over, right, their peers. If you want to have a team of people that truly trust and respect each other, you've got to pay as much attention to values and citizenship and integrity as you do to results. And so I took that and actually I've been working with my own consulting business since 1990, working closely with Ken Blanchard and his clients since 1995. So I've had access to global clients, small mom and pops, all the way to multinationals. And what I began doing very, very intentionally about 22 years ago was to begin to bring some of the learnings that Jerry taught me around values alignment and values clarity and making values important and actually synthesizing them into a culture change experience. In essence, a proven process that has generated tremendous results for clients, but it puts a lot of pressure on leaders, on senior leaders particularly, to live the organizational culture they want, to be very specific about values and behaviors, and to, in essence, make those behaviors as important as performance. So my charge as a coach and as a consultant is to rattle cages, if you will, with senior leaders to help them be more intentional about the quality of workplace interactions. So what prompted me to write the Culture Engine, what is interesting is I've always been a writer, and I've always thought in terms of how do I infect others with some of these good ideas, right? How do I make this tangible? How do I make this doable? Because my experience in working with senior leaders for the last 26 years is that they've not been asked to manage the quality of their culture. They've been asked to get stuff out the door. If it's a product, if it's a service, that's what gets paid attention to. They've never been required to. Let's also check to see whether or not people feel they're trusted and respected in this house, right? So as I crafted, and truly I stumbled, probably took 5 years of testing and working with senior leaders and finding stuff that works to come together with a process that actually was consistent in getting the foundations built and getting the results. So once I finally got to a stage where, number one, I was thrilled that this worked. Number two, it was duplicatable. I realized that it was really something that needed to get out into the world in a broader way. And so with the help of some really smart people, pulled together a book proposal, and John Wiley & Sons, one of the top publishers on the planet, said yes. And it got published in September of 2014. I've been madly doing work with it with clients ever since.
It's fantastic, and it's so well laid out. The way the lesson plan is, and the subtitles within the chapters is really, really good.
I wanted to create a path where people could follow it without me on their shoulder going, "Do this next." A lot of leaders want that, and that's the coaching consulting side of it. But I wanted to make it complete, and I definitely have leaders every month that'll say, "I did this with my team, and it stinking works." It's really fun.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. What would be the ideal way to apply this book? Because it looks like it's just rich with so many lesson plans and information and very key, specific, targeted solutions.
Well, that's a great question because there are so many different ways of integrating some of these practices into a leader's head, heart, and hands. So it's kind of, there's a knowledge piece, there's a skills piece with the hands, but I got to get your heart set on, I can actually craft a team environment where people like each other, where people trust each other, where people cooperate more than they compete. And so the first chapter is basically the founding approach. The main lever in the culture engine is to help leaders craft an organizational constitution. So it's a set of rules. It's a servant purpose. It's a present-day view of what's your team's reason for being, and then getting very specific about how do you want people to treat each other. So that's values and behaviors, and those behaviors are measurable. And you add strategies and goals, and now you've got a package of both performance expectations as well as values expectations together. But the second chapter is really where it has to start, and that chapter is called It Starts With You, which really asks the reader, a leader on a team, a member of a team, a head of a multinational, and everybody in between that has leadership authority and responsibility, to stop and say, what's your primary life purpose? What's your reason for being here on this earth? It may not be to just keep up with the Joneses or beat the Joneses, but it's actually to serve, to be able to help others succeed. And what are your values? What are the principles that guide you when you are doing these behaviors? They feel right. They feel good. You feel like you're actually moving the needle in your neighborhood or your family or your workplace. So the first place to start is the easy place to start because it doesn't require anybody anywhere else to do any work. It's all about us, getting very clear with a servant purpose and living to it, and then being clear about our principles, values, behaviors, and living to those. And all of a sudden, people are going to start seeing us differently because we're going to be acting and treating them differently. Now, the next level then is how do you take it to your team? And again, I've had whole companies do this. I've had small teams do it. The best way to start is to really invite your team members in and talk about what's happening when things are working great. How do we treat each other when interesting opportunity comes in, the client says they want it Tuesday and now they want it immediately. How do we all work best in leveraging our skills, in working together, in serving each other, therefore we're able to serve our consumers, customers, what have you, and beginning to get them to think about what's the reason for being of that team beyond making money. That's a very interesting conversation. And there's a whole chapter in the book about how do you engage in the conversation about a servant purpose, a present-day reason for being for your team, for your small business, for your company. And then the rich conversation gets into how are we going to treat each other? How are we going to make sure that we don't stab people in the back, promise X, deliver Y? How are we going to keep our promises? Basically create an environment where we're working together, because then we're going to have way more fun, we're going to produce a lot more, and we're going to have much less stress. So as I mentioned, the first place is entirely internal, taking a look at your own purpose, values, behaviors. Second place is then to take it to your team and invite them to have a discussion about how do we craft a safe, fun, positive, productive work environment.
That's fantastic. Now, the term integrity seems to be popping up all throughout the manuscript, every chapter, something integrity-based. Now, I'm going to ask you a question we ask most of our deep thinkers, which you are one of those people.
I love that.
And so this is a statement, and then I want to take your turn on it, because I was just wondering, if we took this concept and put it on a larger scale, what would we have? What impact would it have? So now, question is, social media has given us an opportunity to re-engineer ourselves as a species, as in humanity. And in what ways could we use the wonderful connectivity of social media and start attaching some of the ideals that you have here, because these aren't just for an organization. These actually work in countries. They actually work in cultures. They actually work with humanity as a whole.
They do. Communities, they work in neighborhoods. God forbid they work in families. So great
Yes.
question, Althea. And I'd say one of my most strongest drives is integrity. And I did a blog post and a video cast about 3 months ago on unrelenting integrity, driven by the noise of our presidential candidates and that whole run-up to the conventions, which we're seeing now. But what is very interesting about social media is it has the power to connect people, but it also is kind of one of those classic tools that can be used for good or used for evil. And it's rarely that it is used in a neutral form. So what is fascinating, and again, here in the U.S. with the political environment we're in, there's a lot of very polarized thinking and very polarized action, and it's very easy to lash out. And one of the things that I've learned from some really brilliant thinkers, and they're wonderful, as you say, deep thinkers, in the leadership community, in the servant leadership community, in the teamwork community, in the customer service community, in the brand community, it's all the same. It's all the same environment where your integrity is demonstrated with how you treat others. What a surprise. And when you promise X and you deliver that boosts your integrity. So it's kind of keeping promises. So one of the things that I've tried to do in my social media interactions, and there's literally hundreds of them a day, is if I don't have anything nice to say, I don't say anything at all. Imagine that. If someone's really looking for a fight, I'm old. I've lived a long life. I don't need another battle. And I can't help you, and I can't fix you. And I'm probably saying something that's made you mad. Sorry, but I'm going to move on. The idea is we're going to get farther by finding what people are doing right and seeing how people's efforts are aligned. And we don't have to wait for them to win the game. We can even praise them for aligned efforts and stop and say, thank you. That was more than you needed to do. That was a great, great job with X or Y or Z. It moved our family forward. It moved our neighborhood forward. To be able to, in social media, and God forbid in face-to-face interactions, validate people, that is one of the most base requirements of human nature. And when we have people that appreciate what we do and validate our efforts, then my God, we'll sign up, forever. We'll basically drop everything, follow that boss everywhere. And so I think what the power of social media gives us is the ability from afar, in a faceless kind of way, to zing somebody. But we can also, in a faceless kind of way, just say thanks.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Wow, I could just talk to you for hours. This is just so down my